When I remember in 2016 or 17, with one of their first couple bands, exchange activity dropped tremendously. Like it went to like 10, 20% or something. However, local Bitcoins went through the roof. Everybody was just meeting and trading themselves.
Right.
You know, to stop something that's open source, censorship resistant, and permissionless, there's one way to do it. Put an armed guard over everybody's shoulder with an internet connection. Or shut down every communication aspect, satellite, internet, everything in your country. You're not doing that.
No.
How do you stop it? Once it's out there, it's out there.
It's your boy Jerry Rucker, aka Crypto Blood, and I am here with Nate Talbot. This is the first episode we're doing under this new, I don't know what you want to call it, branding. It's called the Decentralized Show. So, I hope you guys enjoy this. Make sure you listen all the way to the end. It helps us on YouTube. Nate,
Yes, sir.
What's going on, bro?
What's happening, brother?
Nothing much, man. We're here in Detroit, Michigan, downtown Woodward. I don't know if you're, this is off topic. Are you familiar with Upland? I've been on
Upland, the protocol, yeah, when they were first
the
testing out the little like Monopoly.
The Monopoly game.
Yeah.
I bought a couple of properties on Woodward down here.
Did they got
opened.
Detroit? See, that's how
Detroit opened.
they didn't have Detroit when I was last down there.
You gotta get back on it, man.
Oh yeah, because I was over there buying up New York.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I
New
need
York.
to come to Detroit.
Well, you got some. If you bought up New York, then you got some good properties then.
Maybe I ain't logged in probably about 5
Oh,
months.
you're a billionaire on there then.
Oh man, why am I here?
Right. All right, we're gonna end this right. No, but Nate, I'm glad you came in to take some time out of your day, your busy schedule, to talk with us. The Decentralized Show is just all about. You asked me before we went live, like, what is it? What's the theme of it? Well, it's just about blockchain. It's about topics within the blockchain space where we can bring experts like yourself in to educate the audience. Inform us on what you're doing on the ground level. If you guys don't know, EOS Detroit, now known as Detroit Ledger Technologies, is a blockchain company here in Detroit. One of the few, ironically enough, but we're doing these podcasts so that people can be more aware of what we're doing in the city and abroad. I mean, we're on 6 different networks at this time, at the time of recording, validating 6 different blockchains, all EOS.io at the moment, but we plan to expand even further in the future. Let's get into it. Like today, I want to talk to you about what's going on right now. This is kind of not like evergreen content. It's going to be very relevant for right now.
Sweet.
So hopefully I can get this out ASAP.
All right, yeah.
The executive order that Biden put out.
Right.
You put a piece out. I don't know where you put it out on, but I saw it on Collider Slack a few days ago.
Oh yeah, with
That's
the
my
breakdown of
Slack going
points.
off right now.
Yeah, that's been like looming over everybody for a few months. I think they first started talking about it maybe right before Christmas.
Yep.
But everybody was like, "What's he gonna order? It's gonna be another ban on Bitcoin. It's gonna be another get rid of crypto type thing." But like you, I've been around the block a few times now.
Right.
It's never that. It's never as bad as it seems. It doesn't take away the threat, right?
Right.
There's power isn't given easily,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of politics in play. So I didn't think it was going to be that bad of a ordeal, and it wasn't. Basically, executive order came out. It was the how did he phrase it? The full government and all government hands on deck to actually give actual guidance on where they stand when it comes to anything crypto and blockchain. And they pointed out, I can't remember all the bullet points, but it was basically consumer protection stuff, making sure that traditional finance is merged in, because you gotta feed your
Moms, huh?
yeah. But there's a couple interesting spots. One of them, the one that caught my attention the most, was there's actually one of the bullet points was about reaching out to disenfranchised people and giving them access through the system and how that works. As from my perspective, that's why I'm in all of this to begin with.
Do you think they're authentic about that?
I think whoever wrote that was authentic. I think whoever approved it and sent it out was like, whatever, you know. I think I'm not as jaded as some people in the space. I think there's a lot of people have good intentions, but what's that saying? You know, good intentions is I can't remember, but basically it's the gateway to hell. You know what I mean? People, they have these good intentions, but they can get co-opted so easy. And you got to sort of start reading between the lines and who's just like, why I didn't think the executive order was going to be that bad to begin with. You know what I mean? Without getting into the politics of sides, Democrats are sort of struggling right now.
Oh,
And what last year when the big funding bill passed, the one from the Senate,
the infrastructure
the infrastructure bill, that got held up for like a month by one issue, crypto. That woke all politicians up. Like, wait a minute, you know, we had like 3 people maybe in the entire Senate who at least even knew what it was, and maybe one who probably had some comprehensive understanding. You know what I mean? That happened. That really flexed the power of this industry. This isn't 2010 anymore, right? A bunch of developers who just have these sort of libertarian dreams. This is like a real thing. So I think that flexed the power. So when it comes to the executive order, they can't be too hard. You got midterms coming up. If it was too hard, they're really going to lose. You know what I mean? It's something where they can sort of stroke both sides of the aisle and be like, hey, we're doing something. Not bad, not good. And I think it opens up the opportunity for us, people who are interested, people who are in the space, people who are building in the space. This is the door to go in and actually start making your voices heard and now shape these policies that they're going to start talking about.
Great point. I was in a metaverse little meeting last night on Allspace.
All right.
I'm not sure if you heard of Allspace VR.
I've heard of it, but I
Powered
haven't.
by Microsoft.
All right.
I was in there because Naughty by Nature, one of the members, Vince, Uncle Vince, he's like deep into the metaverse blockchain
Is
stuff
he?
now. Yeah.
Straight up.
So
All
he
right.
was like, a question was asked toward the end of the little event about how he felt about regulation and stuff, and he said he feels like it's needed to further the advancement of the industry, to validate it. And I disagree, but I say that to say, I felt like the response from everyone after this EO came out, this executive order came out, the response from the crypto industry, the blockchain industry, was like they were excited about this. Like it was a badge of honor, like it was a stamp of approval that they're recognizing it. And I agree. I think the recognition of it and them at least not punting it off and acting like it, keeping this gray area, I think that's better to know where they stand. But to think that just because they recognize blockchain and crypto means that's a good thing ultimately, I think is a wrong assumption. What is your thought about that?
Yeah, I'll probably lean more in your camp, but I make a slight differentiation there, which is you got Coinbase isn't blockchain, right? They're a business. And most of these companies, whether you're a Uniswap, no matter what you're doing in crypto, whether you're working on the metaverse stuff, there's 2 ways you can approach it, right? You can do some altruistic work, and that's what I thought the whole concept when I very first was totally new into this space.
Same here.
Right? It's like there's the altruistic aspect where you're building and just giving. You're not looking to make it a business. You're not looking for profit. You're trying to just make a better world for whatever your viewpoint on that is.
Unbanked, right?
Unbanked.
Unbanked.
Yeah. Well, I was having a conversation on Twitter earlier, right? It's like, to me, when Bitcoin was first launched, the idea was the freedom to opt out, right? I'm not for all of the really the talk of Oh man, let's make this legal tender and let's do this. Like, that's cool, but when you make something legal tender, it's basically the government telling you you have to use this. I didn't get into Bitcoin and crypto in general so the government could force everybody else to use it. It's my preferred option. I want that freedom. And if you're like, hey, I want my marble collection to be that thing, and you can get people to buy into it, I
Get
think you should be
consensus,
free to
right.
do that. Let your
Right.
marbles be value, whatever y'all find it. So I think when you're talking about people who are excited about any kind of legislation, you know, uh, the businesses that are building on top aren't blockchain. They need that kind of guidance so they know where to build, how to build, what to do, whatever.
Right. So
The
like Detroit Ledger Technologies, we need guidance
Yeah.
on many aspects of our day-to-day operations.
I mean,
and
do you
how-
want to spend a year and, potentially millions and millions of dollars building something for the government to come along and be like, yeah, we decided the opposite of what you're doing. So you want
But I
that
guess
guidance.
and the audience can definitely comment in the section below this video about, delineating and differentiating the business world in blockchain and everyone else,
Well, the
the,
infrastructure.
the citizens'
Yeah.
use case for it. And we
Yeah.
all know that it initially was designed for the individual
Correct.
to be self-sovereign and all of that, right?
Yeah, and that's the other reason I get excited about all the regulations that come down. Again, not in the aspect of, yeah, they're cracking down and making it like harder for people to interact with it, but I'm for, again, the permissionless, censorship-resistant, open source aspects. Right? Those are my key things I look for in any project. If you're truly those three things, regulations were invented to protect people from other people. How do you regulate, I'll just keep saying Bitcoin to use an example, but there's other networks, right? How do you regulate Bitcoin? Who does the government, what door do they knock on?
Oh, the centralized companies, the private companies.
Only the private companies, but you don't need those. Bitcoin was an operating network before it was a big
Right.
company.
Right.
And it'll be an operating network when the big companies get shut down and the hash rate drops and all of a sudden you don't need ASICs anymore and you can start, it'll keep working. As long as you got one or more people, it kills the decentralization aspect some. But the point is the network chugs on. And the only people who really have to worry are people who are building mostly centralized entities. They have to worry about getting shut down. They have to worry about the regulations. The stablecoin argument. This is why the government's doing all this. Everything the government's doing stems right back to Facebook. They don't want Facebook to be able to
Libra
do their
coin.
thing. Right.
Right, and that's why they axed that.
They
They
X'd
axed
it
that
all out.
whole program. I
Yeah.
said that when the white paper came out. I knew that day. Oh, you're trying to do a stable coin, or some type of. It wasn't at that point. It wasn't a stable coin. It was just supposed to be their own
Yeah, their own
proprietary coin. Come on, man. You can't.
No.
The governments are not going to allow you to come in and offer a coin to 2 billion people.
Yeah, and
That's very dangerous.
it's dangerous for their power structure, and
their
we've
power
had that before. It didn't work. Before the Federal Reserve, before there was a Treasury, before Adam Smith wrote his stuff, we had private entities who held gold issuing their own dollar. We had
this is
tons of
my
dollars.
question to you about this executive order. I knew, and people who follow executive orders before Trump
Mm-hmm.
should know that an EO doesn't come out with direct mandates.
Correct.
It's usually like a framework from which you'll start to do other things
Mhm.
and get more narrow on your initiatives, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't think that they were going to come out and ban Bitcoin today, or when it came out.
Mhm.
I thought it would be a set of initiatives that they would then go further on, and that's what they've done. They're going to have how many agencies, departments now involved? Is it 5 or 6?
Yeah, it's about that.
16 members, heading it. I just feel like the more hands in the pot, the more restrictive it's going to become on the industry. I've never seen a time when regulation has been less restrictive on an industry.
They tend not to give you more freedoms.
That's the whole. It's oxymoronic to say I'm going to regulate you to have more freedom.
Yeah. But the one place I would push back is that you have seen it.
Where?
You see mega corporations and billionaires doing it all the time. They get less restrictions because they push through. And so
They have
they have lobbying.
initiatives and agencies.
But this is what I was saying about the infrastructure bill. We're showing that we have lobbying too. And I'm not saying this anywhere near the level of like a mobile, right? But why are politicians there? We're still just fighting politicians. You know, we like to frame the government as this thing, this sole entity, but it's just people. And all those people want something. And they usually want another term. And so the opportunity that's presented with something like this versus when they just come out and be like, this is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. The opportunity is now we have a chance to affect those people and change their mindsets. And then let them know you can go against the grain, but this is going to be your last term. You know what I mean? There's a few people running this year for Senate and House that are running not strictly on crypto, but they're making it a real large part of their platform.
Sure.
And this will be a test. You know, if you're in the U.S., you know, maybe considering being that single issue voter, or at least ranking it very high on your priority list, get those people in and tell all the other politicians, like, what happened in, I don't know if you follow South Korea, but did you see what happened with their new president, their election? Both candidates had to go pro-crypto in order to draw the voters in to vote for them. And the more pro-crypto candidate won. Like their version of the libertarian candidate won because he promised the most with that. Because the citizens there, like, made it known. Like, you've just, the past, what's his name, Moon, he had, like, banned all the exchanges and made it really restrictive. The people yelled back.
Is this just a symptom of governments losing power, though? Like, I feel like we all know that governments are reactive, never proactive.
Always.
Bureaucracy always slows down decision making, right? In a more democratic society. Mm-hmm. There are pros and cons of communism. One pro is they can turn on a dime.
Yeah.
Right? We see that with China. Mm-hmm. They're very good at adapting, switching, innovating on a dime because they have the command comes from the top down, you know. But my question to you is, at the end of the day, you mentioned stable coins. Mm-hmm. This is ultimately all about, in a roundabout way, to figure out how they're going to control the stable coin market. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's CBDC.
The stable coin and CBDC, right. With the central bank digital dollar, do you think that the government, in the United States specifically, will be rolling that out anytime soon? The reason I ask that is because I actually think it's a threat to the current structure of the banking system, right? You will no longer need, in a CBDC world, you will no longer need a Huntington Bank, any of the regional banks. You wouldn't even need national banks.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So that disrupts that whole industry.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something they're willing to do, being the you know, we're the global reserve currency? Is that something we want to do in the next 5 years?
Well, depends what you're talking about. Is it something like the Federal Reserve,
The
and
Federal
Treasury
Reserve,
want to do?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they
But
absolutely
I'm saying
want
the
it.
private banking sector
Absolutely don't want it.
Exactly. So how do you see that playing out?
Realistically, how it always plays out. The banks will buy them out until they have their wedge in it. Right? It's just like with the
So I will say J.P. Morgan is being very proactive. Mm-hmm. Ironically enough, Jamie Dimon has been one of the biggest haters of blockchain and crypto. However, they are actively getting involved in the metaverse for lending in that realm, because these metaverse prices the plots of land in the metaverses are so are becoming so expensive that
Right.
common people will literally need a mortgage to buy
Pretty much
land.
already there. Yeah,
So
but
back to my original question, how do you see that panning out at the end where you have private bank sector versus Fed and Treasury? How does that
I
look?
tend to relate it more to aging myself a lot. But when the internet first came about, private companies
You
and
were wrong
governments,
when the internets came out?
well, you know, I was breathing. um, they had they had an alternative. Now, nobody knew what the internet was, right? But they knew it was public, and they didn't like that. So what did every company and every government agency and organization do? They had their alternative. It was called the intranet, right? It's like the internet, but it's just
Right.
our corporation. We can give you everything the internet gives you, and you see how that lasted. And I think from bank intervention to CBDCs and a lot of these things where these centralized powers are coming in, trying to figure out how they can build another walled garden around this, asset class. I think it's the internet again. I think it's a much higher stakes thing for them because they saw what the internet could do and how that just sucked power away. They're not going to be very open to letting that happen again. But the question is, and this is again goes back to like I'm welcoming to when they try to lock things down because I forgot who said this on Twitter a while ago, but about all the China bans. You can only ban something once. After that, you've just proven you can't ban it.
But
Right?
has China been successful at banning crypto?
They've been
I think
successful
so.
of driving crypto innovation out of China, but who did that hurt?
The citizens.
Yeah,
And
like crypto industry. That was like
But they pushed it out to bring in the CBDC, which is they're the first country to implement it and have it.
and that's going to suck for their people.
Yeah.
But it didn't affect crypto. And that's sort of the point. You can disenfranchise your citizens, but then even then, did you? Like, yes, you've drove it down. You don't think there's still active crypto communities happening there? When I remember in 2016 or 17 with one of their first couple bans, you know, exchange activity dropped tremendously. Like it went to like 10-20% or something. However, local Bitcoins went through the roof. Everybody was just meeting and trading themselves.
Right.
You know, to stop something that's open source, censorship resistant, and permissionless, there's one way to do it. Put an armed guard over everybody's shoulder with an internet connection. Or shut down every communication aspect, satellite, internet, everything in your country. You're not doing that.
No.
So what is there? All you can do is slow things down.
If I'm hearing it correctly, you're like, I can't wait for them to attempt to ban it.
Yeah, I don't want to put it like that because I don't want to see it, but
because
it
they're not
happens.
going to be successful.
Yeah, I just don't see how they can stop it. They can really slow down innovation in the U.S. But, you know, the U.S. has a double-edged sword when it comes to things like this. Like, they don't want to see, they want CBDCs. They won't mind stable coins because it's just another version of the CBDC for them. But they also want to keep the world leadership they've had over the past 60 years or so. This is what, if you've seen it, the Ray Diallo video was all about with the switching of power. You know, America's showing all the signs of that down curve.
Yes.
So they don't want that. And while they don't want to see, you know, permissionless money or permissionless anything, they also don't want to be the one left out. And it's like, how can we figure this out? Which is why I agreed with you. It's like, yeah, they say like they want to see how it can help the disenfranchised. Do they mean it? But it will buy them time to try to figure out how to co-opt it. My thing is, and one of the reasons I'm in this whole space is because this is one of the first things we've seen beyond like the printing press and the internet, where how do you stop it? I can see you slowing it down. I can see you locking it down. I can see you throwing people in prison. They did that same thing with the printing press.
Gutenberg, right?
Yeah. How do
Mm-hmm.
How do you stop it? Once it's out there, it's out there.
I agree. I agree.
And so,
And I think one thing I really I'm loving about the crypto space is that I think because they are coming with the CBDCs, I think the cryptos that aren't run or controlled by anyone, the permissionless ones, are actually going to be our new form of cash.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Like, so right now, if I have $100,000 in cash,
Mm-hmm.
no bank can freeze my assets. No government agency can, take it without coming to see me,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And physically take it. That's the same thing with Bitcoin, right? If it's
Yeah.
in your own, it's in your own control, right? They can't do anything about it. And I think it's just like Cash 2.0 that
Mhm.
we're going into, and it's perfect because they're coming with the CBDCs, which are going to be very restrictive, very surveillance, like.
Even if they're not China level, this is what the whole Canada situation was about, right? People didn't believe that a government would shut you down like this.
Yes.
And again, it doesn't matter how you feel about the why.
Right.
What matters is Canada was like, the government felt we're being threatened. I'm shutting everything down. Not if you've broken a law, not we're going to put this under kind of judicial review if you've been identified doing something. Their quoting was, if you directly or indirectly support this thing.
Can anyone say 1985
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
or
they
84?
right, 1984. They shut people's mortgages off. They canceled people's
Yeah,
mortgages
it's crazy.
without even like going under like you didn't get a court order. A judge never saw it. I mean, they're not the U.S., but they still have processes. You can't
I was
just.
actually surprised at our neighbors to the north.
But what do you
in
think
Detroit
that opens
did
up
that.
if Canada does it?
Right.
And this is why, right?
Right.
The next time, again, it doesn't really matter your political. Next time the Black Lives Matter protest happens, if you're for the January 6th,
Right.
thing, whatever protest you're on, what happens now when they're like, wait, that's an option? You know
That's
what I
in
mean?
the playbook now. That's
So-
definitely in the playbook.
And that's without a CBDC, where they really can just touch a button. It was one of the managers of the Bank of England. At first, they were weary about this whole CBDC. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Federal Reserves and central banks across the world laughed at the concept of a CBDC.
It's
You right?
interesting because I've been in space for 9 years this month now, right? I remember in 16, I believe, Canada, Bank of Canada was actually piloting some CBDC programs early on.
Really? Yeah.
Early on.
Mm.
And it's just interesting to see how they're
That's
gonna
probably when
really-
like Andreas was out there. I remember he was talking to the.
Canada, all those YouTube videos with
Yeah.
him at those, committee meetings and stuff. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, CBDCs are only going to give governments more power, but thank God there is a outlet, there is an escape route, which is your Bitcoins and your other permissionless
Yeah.
forms of money and cash.
Yeah, because they're gonna when they outlaw cash, then it's too late. So, there's you got to sort of be future thinking on what happens. And again, I'm not for governments forcing you to use. I don't want them to come along and be like everybody has to accept Bitcoin. That's a private decision. I think companies can make that decision. If it's wax, whatever it is, if a company's like this is what we're going to use and people are like this is what we want to use, I think they should have that freedom to do that. But when they come along and be like you can only do this and everything else is illegal, which is sort of what CBDCs will lead to,
Yes.
it's game over. So we have to forward think whether or not you believe in any of these cryptos or anything right now. What's your alternative? What are you going to do when it's opt out? And then what happened in Ukraine and Russia? There hasn't been a time in history that I know of where citizens from a separate sovereign nation could directly fund a external nation's war. We raised Ukraine raised, I think, $30 million or so in cryptos directly. Not a nonprofit that then filtered out the money. This went right to the war coffers.
Yeah, that was great.
So think of what countries can do, right? And then if you're in crypto,
But at the same time, and this is where we have to be accepting of this fact, just as much as there were donations to humanitarian efforts, and on that side to Ukraine, you have to allow on the other side for the Russian billionaires and oligarchs to get their money out of, and that's what happened. We saw both sides, right? We saw the way to leverage blockchain to circumvent the authorities, and then there's a way to help authorities or causes.
It's
directly.
no
So
different
great.
than the
It was
First
great.
Amendment, right? I want to say whatever I want to. Unfortunately, that means even though I might not like you, I gotta let you say whatever you want to.
Right.
There's ups and downs with everything.
Unless
you know what
you're
I mean?
screaming fire in a movie theater.
Which I recently found out that's sort of a misnomer. There is no like court ruling that says you can't. First Amendment doesn't count there. It's just a rule of thumb people apply. You actually probably could do it and legally get away with it. You know what I mean? Now they'd probably tie something else to you if somebody got hurt, but
Right.
the fact that you said it is not a crime in and of itself.
Let's move on to the EU. So, ironically enough, the Biden executive order came out a few days ago.
Right.
And then just a day or two ago, so within a week's time frame, we had some guidance from the EU, and they took a slightly different approach, or at least
They almost did.
they almost did. They wanted to go more the this is not environmentally friendly, or we're going to regulate this because it's possibly not carbon neutral, or they have a huge push to go, I don't know, carbon neutral or negative by 2050.
Right.
And proof of work coins are on the table. They also looked at stable coins. Talk to us about what your thoughts are on how that's going to shape out in the EU when it comes to the cryptocurrency, blockchain, legislation, and stuff.
I think a bullet was dodged because it didn't pass. However, it doesn't mean it's off the table. And, similar to China, it's like it's not going to kill the industry. That would hurt. You know what I mean?
They did ban ATMs though, right?
Yeah, they banned the ATM thing. So, from what I read of what's called MiCo, the EU bill, the primary hurt, where it all tied to proof of stake, was they weren't going after like the proof of stake itself. They were going to make it illegal for the exchanges to do any trading, on-ramping, off-ramping of any tokens that were tied to proof of stake. And then that would filter down to basically your whole KYC AML thing. So, it was an indirect, direct attack on the space. They dodged a bullet, especially the citizens of the EU. Now's the time to sort of talk to them. The entire proof of work, everything that goes around crypto, we've put ourselves sort of in this divide, right? Where it's like you're either pro or against. And, I've been feeling probably especially for like the past year or two, we deserve a better grade of critic. And a few have popped up, Is global warming a threat? You know what I mean? Should we reduce? Should we just reduce? Even if global warming is a threat, if we can help the planet, should we? All right? And I'm for the yes argument of that. However, the question has become, how do you do it? And shutting down Bitcoin, shutting down all the proof of work coins, doesn't help the planet. The planet was well on its way to being screwed before 2009.
Even before humans, and that's a
So,
whole other
right, but
rabbit
like
hole we can go down.
it was a problem before proof of work. When you really put it on a scale of things, proof of work isn't really that damaging compared to other things. I don't want to use that argument. I don't think that's the argument they should be having. The argument, if you want to be progressive, and this is what I think all American citizens talking to their politicians, EU citizens, everybody should be having, is what's worth using the energy for? You know what I mean? I would say that crypto is, a permissionless, censorship-resistant, open source platform is worth the energy usage. And if you want to reduce carbon footprints,
not
well,
to
yeah,
a government. All those adjectives that
it could be to the government. Well,
mentioned
no, it could be to the government, not our government. But again, if you go back to Ukraine, the thing other governments are going to be looking at with the Ukraine situation and the Russia situation is I know within our community, we've been talking about what backs the dollar, bullets, right?
Yep.
And we've been weaponizing money for years. It just got brought to light, though. Actually, like taking SWIFT away, shutting down, like we've weaponized weapons, or we've weaponized money.
Yeah.
Now, most of the world, I think, right now is on that page of, oh yeah, that's great because it's Russia.
What happens to them?
But I think there's a lot of countries that are like, what if?
Oh yeah.
So they're going to be looking for an open, censorship-resistant, permissionless platform to hedge against these things.
Very true.
And so if you're going to be concerned about the carbon footprint thing, the question isn't, do we shut down this network? Because it's like getting rid of dogs. Oh, pit bulls are vicious. All right, you get rid of pit bulls. What's next? Rottweilers? Because now they're going to be the next vicious in the line.
It never stops.
Or you can be like, how can we better train all dogs so none of them are vicious? How do we approach proof of work systems? How do we incentivize proof of work businesses to draw off of clean energy? That's the better argument, and that's the argument that people should be making to the politicians and the whole what do they call them, the EDC, the environment, whatever acronym thing. That's the argument they really should be having. That's the opportunity we sort of have right now. Because that EU crypto bill, it was snuck in. It was supposed to be gone. It got snuck in the last minute, like on Friday.
Yep.
It's going to be back.
Of course.
So, just like us with the executive order, you have a window of time. Have real conversations. Proof of work isn't perfect. You know what I mean? It might be...
What is your favorite consensus algorithm?
Proof of work. My favorite is a proof of work. I'm very interested in a lot of different ones. The purpose of the consensus is security. And just like anything else, how do you know anything's secure until somebody tries to break it? And proof of work has now 13 years of people trying to break it, and they haven't broken it. People say there's an alternative of proof of stake, but proof of stake proper isn't a thing. There's a bunch of proof of stake different algorithms that are wildly different in their approach.
Here at Detroit Ledger Technology, we're delegated proof of stake experts and secure those types of networks and consensus algorithms. I just feel like there's a different fit for every implementation or use case, right? I think for currencies, sure, let's do a proof of work. That's fine. But we can't use proof of work for a DApp to run a full smart.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm 100% with you on that. Context matters.
Right.
I don't need censorship-resistant collectibles.
Right.
My opinion on that might change more when you're talking about land deeds, right? So that's why I'm not going to say NFTs.
Right.
But yeah, I don't care if this baseball collection on the blockchain is centralized as much as I care about if my car title.
Right.
That one I want more decentralized. So there's variances. Yeah, and that's why I think they're all interesting. And eventually, like democracy, right? Well, people talk about capitalism all the time. Is capitalism the best thing in the world that we've ever seen? Capitalistic systems. It might not be the best, but it's the best we know of.
Yeah.
And so come up with something better.
Right.
When you come up with something better, I'll be open to that conversation.
Right.
I love different. I'm not a
Maxi.
a maxi on proof of work on Bitcoin. I want to see all these things succeed, and I want to see them tested. That's why, again, with the regulations stuff, like these things test these networks.
Right.
There's a on the Cosmos ecosystem. There's a chain called Juno.
Okay.
They just did a serious test of whether delegated proof of stake and/or DAOs, where the line gets drawn. I think it's something that anybody that's especially into those mechanisms should be studying. Are you familiar with the?
Not Juno, no.
So, Juno is basically a smart contract platform in the Cosmos ecosystem.
Okay.
And they did a fair drop, right? And so to incentivize just like a regular airdrop, except they were like, if you're an exchange, you're not getting any of the airdrop. If you're a wallet that holds more than $50,000 or whatever in this currency, that's your max. You'll get up to this amount. And so it turns out with any consensus algorithm though, right? It's like, or any consensus mechanism, it's how you design it. It's game theory.
Yep.
Problem is, there was somebody who had a bunch of wallets and maxed out that 50,000 and then recently merged them all into one. So everybody knew, hey, this is one person. You cheated. And now we have the DAO situation. Did they cheat or was it a design mechanism? But it's a delegated proof of stake. So
How
the
many
users
people?
voted
Yeah.
to pull back everything over 50,000 from that delegated. They're going to let him keep whatever he earned in staking fees.
I'm cool with that. As long as there's a broad consensus and not 5 people that decided that.
Correct, but now how does Juno have the conversation, the network have that conversation of this is immutable money? It's not immutable. It's immutable as long as you don't piss off the crowd. And whether or not it's a good point or not, it's like, should you? And can you? And this is the other question it brings up with those kind of systems, especially like a delegated proof of stake, or a DAO. I would say really specifically a DAO. Just because the community votes for something, how do you force it? What if none of the validators do it? Then what? You voted for it, but they don't do it. If it's not designed into the consensus mechanism, like we all voted this and then just the smart contract does it.
Right.
Well then, how is that different from just like, let's form our own little club and,
Right.
do you need a blockchain for that?
Yeah, good questions posed there. So to wrap up, man, let us know what Nate Talbot is doing here in the city. You're co-founder of the DBC, which is Detroit Blockchain Center.
Yeah.
Kind of tell us about that and what you're doing here in the city.
All right.
As of late.
Yep, Detroit Blockchain Center. We are a Michigan nonprofit based around blockchain education primarily. We tie a lot of financial and digital literacy to that. We try to act as a resource center for businesses that are looking to start up, whether they're directly tied to crypto, whether they're actually doing crypto or blockchain based stuff, or whether it's sort of ancillary to it. And really just educate people on why this is important. You know what I mean? How it's going to help. Yes, there is the good old number go up.
Right.
But that's why I tell people, come for the riches, stay for the revolution. You know what I mean? The price going up on any network, like any crypto network, is a side effect. It's not the reason, of a growing asset class. The number won't go up forever. You know what I mean?
Law of large numbers will kick in.
Yep, but that wasn't the purpose. The purpose was permissionless, censorship resistant,
And
distributed
maybe
power.
another conversation we can have in the future is what is the price of permissionless,
Yeah.
censorship resistant, anti-fragile? What is that price look
Yeah.
like though?
Yeah.
As the gate, as the circle closes in on us from these governments, that price goes up. The value of that goes up.
Well, it's separating price from value, and then understanding that price doesn't just mean dollar. There's high prices people pay, and they're not coming out of money. Sometimes they're coming out of their lives.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, what is the price for it? And a quick answer is, it's a good future show. My quick answer is, for economies like ours, price isn't really there because we don't need it. The current system sucks, but it's one of the best in the world.
Right.
It's sufficient enough.
Yeah.
Now ask somebody, in a authoritarian, ask a North Korean citizen what that price is worth to them.
Right, or an Iranian, right? In the theocracy system.
Yeah, I mean, right. Ask people who are really cut off, which is, half the world, 2/3 of the world.
Yeah.
People like to talk about privilege. Well, let's talk about our financial privilege.
Right. Right.
Our poor people are doing great compared to somebody in like the Dominican Republic.
Very
Our
true.
poor people would be like upper middle class.
Very true. Very
So,
true. Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Decentralized Show. Nate Talbot here with us. We'll check you guys next time. Peace.